Early on each Tuesday morning, right here on The Source, WOCA.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. If you think back, we have this discussion every now and then, and our next guest is going to add something to a conversation that I want to refer to. Okay, the conversation is, do you remember any of your teachers? And quite often, the ones that we remember, and I can specifically remember a couple, it wasn't just that they were teaching me something. It was that they were just a pleasure to be around. When you're a child, you don't think in terms of who's a pleasure to be around and who's not. You just sort of kind of, gravitate toward that. I took accordion lessons when I was a kid, right? Mm-hmm. And the guy who taught me was named Carl, and Carl was from Italy. And, oh my gosh, I couldn't have had a better teacher. And my memory of him is that this was the nicest, kindest guy. I mean, can you imagine the patience you need with an 8-year-old trying to learn to play accordion? But he was just the nicest, kindest guy. And when I was looking at the book that we're about to talk to called Teaching with Tenderness, I thought of Carl. And I thought of Mrs. Foster, a fourth grade teacher I had. And I thought of some of the others, And, of course, teachers that are not really labeled as teachers, like your parents or like your aunt and uncle or like an older brother or something, The ones who taught us with tenderness seem to have resonated with us in a better way. Dr. Becky Thompson got me on this train of thought. She wrote the book, Teaching with Tenderness. She's a human rights activist, a professor of sociology at Simmons College, a cross-cultural trainer. I spoke to her a little bit off the air, and I said, I wish we had more time to talk, and now I'm taking up all her time with her intro. Dr. Becky, thank you for being on the show with us today. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Larry and Robin, for having me on. Even if it's short, it can be sweet.
Yes, nice. Well, I appreciate that. Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Boston, where it has definitely decided that it is winter.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. Yeah, you got a cold front coming in right now. We're coming up there, not to Boston, but to New York in a week and a half. So, believe it or not, we're actually looking forward to it, the cold.
Well, bring the scarves, and I was just listening to one of the advertisements as I was waiting to be able to talk with the two of you, and it was about Central Florida having beautiful gardens all the way around.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, it does. Do you know, one of the teachers we all know is Mr. Rogers, and was there ever a tenderer person than him?
No. He could make your heart just break looking at his eyes, There's
Yes.
such a softness to him, and I think that's some of what his longevity was about. I was actually able to spend some time with him in his last year because he got a big award in Boston, and so I sat at a table with him for a few hours, and I was just blown away by his tenderness. I mean, he's an exemplary model for us in terms of what it means to teach with tenderness.
I want to be a little contrary now, not for the sake of being contrary, but because I want to interject something maybe a listener is thinking. This might work with fourth graders, but does this work when you're trying to train somebody in the military? Don't you have to be a tough drill sergeant?
There's so many things that make it hard to teach and practice tenderness, whether you're teaching in a kindergarten or whether you're teaching in colleges, and there certainly is resistance, partly because we've all been trained to kick the tenderness out of ourselves, including people that are in the military. But as someone who used to teach at the University of Colorado, where 80% of my students were either in the military themselves or had family who were in the military, I was so moved by how much they were craving tenderness, partly because they needed to be sure that they would be welcomed back into their communities and treated tenderly because they had gone through such horrific, seen so much that was horrific when they were in the military and overseas and away from their families. So I would say the military is especially a place where people need to be able to have a chance to keep their hearts open and to understand the underlying social issues that are standing in the way. We can't really talk about tenderness as some kind of Hallmark card. In the end, it's like we can't even really think about tenderness as long as we're dealing with police brutality and escalating poverty and sexual abuse and militarism all over the country. So those are precisely the places where we need to have more conversation.
Oh my gosh, that's such a strong statement. Do you know, I think you're right. We are taught by the example that people we don't even know might be giving us on TV, on the news, etc.
One of the poets that I teach that speaks to the issue around tenderness in the military is Yusef Komunyakaa, who's one of my most beloved poets, and he has a poem called Facing It. There's 4 lines. My black face fades, hiding inside the black granite. I said I wouldn't, damn it, no tears. And of course he's standing there at the memorial in D.C. crying, and I love that poem because he's willing to let his body have its own natural reaction to the level of grief that he's experiencing, and that modeling that we are able to actually be our whole bodies is part of what I'm trying to talk about in a hopefully complex kind of way in the book.
Do you think that political correctness is hindering tenderness? Everybody's so on edge these days.
Well, I try to be as correct as I can politically. I mean, for me, correct is about trying to have principles. So for me, that's embracing engaged nonviolent struggle and listening deeply to each other and recognizing when power imbalances need to be addressed. So I'm someone who actually believes that there is something called a correct way of being in the world that is an acceptance that we are never perfect, that we're always learning and struggling with each other. So I guess I'm from the place of saying, yeah, we need to have standards and hold each other accountable to them. I think I say that especially as a white woman trying to do anti-racist work, that I'm always learning and trying to listen deeply to people of color so that I know what my next steps can be as an ally.
I think I don't want to allow any stereotypes to fog over what I'm trying to say here, but I think let me use the word genuine religious leaders have always taught with tenderness, the genuine one. And I have to stress genuine because we have so many people who put on that robe and they're not, but I know many of them are,
Well, even just being able to be in the company of the Dalai Lama or Thich Nhat Hanh, who's someone who's deeply influenced me, or Wilma Mankiller, or Angela Davis, as 4 world leaders that I think of. They exude tenderness, while they also have principled positions around, what they want to model in the world.
You also talk about the teachers in the schools, and you use the metaphor about tossing away student desks that are broken and bent, and then you ask the question, but how do you help the teachers?
Yeah, teachers are under so many stresses now, in some ways unprecedented. I was raised by a teacher. My mother is a high school teacher, and she also was married for 30 years to a college teacher. So I come from a long line of teachers, and what I saw is, giving everything they had during the day and coming home and collapsing. And at a time when we're hearing about teachers needing to teach to the test and getting rated, I come from a place of that most teachers come to the classroom really caring about what they do, and they need the kind of support because they're also dealing with all kinds of trauma. I mean, I think about just this year, what I'm witnessing among the students and how they are dealing with the massacres, the epidemic of shootings, and what that means for us as teachers to be able to be quiet enough to not have to run ahead with the agenda that we came in with if there's an emergency that needs to happen. Just this week, for example, a student went into anaphylactic shock in my class, and I was just so impressed by the students. They just stopped right away and dealt with it, and we did a closing circle afterwards, and there was love in the air as the EMTs came in. And that's, I think, the kind of classroom that we need to create so that people know that their whole bodies are welcome, not just their heads.
The book is called Teaching with Tenderness. I have the cover of the book as the image that we're streaming on the broadcast right now, and of course it'll be part of the podcast later on. I found that on Amazon. You're getting great reviews on Amazon, by the way. I want to say this, that one of the reasons why this would have been a nicer interview it would have been nicer if we could have been longer, is because I think your book will resonate with people who agree with you. I think the book will really serve people, though, who maybe are borderline. I can't imagine somebody. I can't imagine somebody disagreeing with you, but there are probably some people who do, and those people may never be able to be convinced of what you're saying. But I think somebody who's kind of on the fence, I think you're gonna pull them over to your side of thinking in this one.
Well, I actually have a foil in the book. Her name is Diane Hereford, and she's a professor of sociology at Vassar, and she's also my best friend. And many times in the book she says, "But Becky, what about?" And I actually can't imagine what you're talking about. And are you crazy? And so I try to bring in a dialogue.
Well, good for you.
There's actually a lot of resistance to this, and there's all kinds of reasons that start with a place of fear and not having the modeling for what it means to teach from an embodied perspective. So, yeah, I'm hoping that the book, allows people to speak about their own concerns and their skepticism. I mean, if there's not room for skepticism, my God. I was raised up through Brandeis University in the PhD, where skepticism was what you were supposed to do as a student, be skeptical of everything.
If all children saw both of their parents being tender to one another, being respectful of one another, I think that right there, and I don't mean to be, was it Pollyannish when you try to be all good? But I do think that if we could start to learn in our own families and in our own justice halls and things like that, in Congress, if we could be a little bit more tender, if we could be, and that's not copping out at all. I think you can still have a strong opinion and try to express it in a tender way and in a respectful way. I think this whole all this stupid sexual stuff that's coming out, all these pigs that are crawling out of the woodwork. Thank God that people are pointing them out. Say, oh my gosh, people who we thought were respectable, turns out they're not.
Well, we actually don't have any evidence that pigs are sexual harassers, right? I mean, it's human beings who are doing this. I don't want to even.
Oh, that's funny. That's good. You know what I mean.
Model a little bit of behavior.
This is. I knew this would be a good long one. Oh my gosh! If you ever can come back, we would love to have it. All right, I found the book on Amazon. It's available there. Do you have a website you want to direct us to?
Yes, it's BeckyThompsonYoga.com, and it's a newly designed website. So I'd love to hear people's feedback about it. There's a lot about activism on the website as well.
BeckyThompsonYoga.com, and you're in Boston, you said?
I sure am.
All right. Well, we'll be just down the road from you in about a week and a half. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. We will take a little break. I'm reaching for the wrong button here. We'll be right back.
Be sweet.
The Healthcare Association has recognized Palm Garden of Ocala as a 2017 Silver Quality Award recipient. The award spotlights providers that demonstrated their commitment to improving quality of care. Executive Director Jennifer McCullough said, "We are honored to be recognized for what we've accomplished on our journey to improving quality care, and this has helped us achieve better outcomes." The award will be presented to Palm Garden during AHCA's annual convention in Las Vegas in October. Direct Connect to UCF, where students who attend the College of Central Florida and graduate with an AA or articulated AS degree are guaranteed admission to the University of Central Florida. Success coaches are ready and waiting to assist you in designing